What if the reason punishment isn't working for your child with ADHD traits isn't because they're difficult, but it's because punishment is just the wrong tool? In fact, for many kids with ADHD traits, punishment actually makes things worse. In this video, I'm going to talk about why this happens, and I'm going to offer different strategies that are going to be much more beneficial when you're raising a child with ADHD traits. And these are actually strategies that are going to help with any child. Now, here's the interesting part. Many of the traits that we label as ADHD, impulsivity, hyperactivity, inattentiveness, may not be a disorder at all. It may just be a different way our child interacts with the environment. When we stop looking at ADHD through the lens of a disorder, then we have much more power as parents to help our children integrate in a world that may not fit their character traits. So before we talk about these strategies, I want to break down what ADHD actually is. For those who are new here, my name is Efrat Amira. I'm a mom of 3 boys, ages 4, 8, and 12. I'm a parenting coach, and I'm just passionate about integrating ideas from ancient wisdom into the way that we parent our children today. Now let's dive in. The mainstream concept of ADHD is that it is a disorder that needs to be treated either with drugs or with therapy. But what if ADHD is just a complex human trait and not a uniform disorder? ADHD presents itself as inattention, hyperactivity, impulsivity. Some kids exhibit all of these tendencies. Some kids exhibit only one. There is actually a framework that talks about 7 different types of ADHD. You can check out Daniel Amen's content to learn more about that. I will link that in the show notes below. But the idea is that ADHD can present itself in a very different way between different children. But one thing that is common between all those traits is that this is a clash between dynamic children and an inflexible environment, because most of the issues with ADHD arise inside a school environment where those dynamic traits such as hyperactivity or impulsivity clash with a system that demands stillness, passivity, and constant compliance. So this is a clash between the dynamic traits and an inflexible system. This friction is where power struggle and behavioral issues ignite. So this clash presents itself as a child that is in a chaotic state, a child that is dysregulated. I'm curious to know what behavior in your child made you start wondering about ADHD in the first place. Was it impulsivity? Was it inattention or hyperactivity, or something actually completely different? Now let's look at the pendulum of ineffective parenting. In this situation where our child has traits that do not fit into the current system, if we are too strict as parents and we use punishment as a method, that's not going to work, and I'll explain in a minute why. And if we are too lenient and too wishy-washy with our boundaries, that's not going to work as well. What these kids need more than anything is clarity and stability. Children who struggle with impulsivity and regulation need clarity and stability and not unpredictability. Now let's dive specifically into punishment and why it doesn't work. Punishment has nothing to do with a child's behavior and everything to do with a parent's emotional state. So when we punish our children, it comes from anger, fear, frustration, feeling overwhelmed and out of control. When we are dysregulated, we punish our children. We yell at them. We use parenting strategies that are trying to control our children. We're using force and power in order to manage their behaviors. Punishment often comes from a place of parental dysregulation, as I said, and not from a place of actually wanting to teach our children skills in order to succeed in this world. What happens when we punish is that an adult reacts from a dysregulated emotional state. They transfer the emotional chaos and energy to the child. It creates more fear, frustration, and anger in the child, and the dynamic shifts towards power struggle and resentment. This is the transfer of energy that we see when we're punishing our children and we are using these power over parenting strategies. So if punishment doesn't work and wishy-washy boundaries, gentle parenting strategies don't work as well, what should we do instead? We want to shift to calm leadership. We want to shift from emotional reactivity into being a calm leader for our children and leading them from a place of self-regulation and co-regulation. Children learn emotional regulation through calm leadership, not emotional reactivity. So I'm going to break down a few strategies that practically will help us step into that calm leadership role. The first thing that we need to do is we need to create structure, because structure creates safety. We want to set clear expectations, clear consequences, whether they're positive or negative, consistent follow through, and that will create the clarity and predictability that children with ADHD traits thrive on. So I want to break this into a very specific example. Let's say my child comes back from school. First thing that they do is they sit on their iPad. I'm asking them to put the iPad down so they will go do their homework. They're basically not listening. I'm asking again. They're not listening. I'm raising my voice. They're not listening. I punish and threat because that's the only way that they're eventually going to listen. Now, that may be effective for the short term, but that doesn't really create the skill that we want our children to have. So how does this look from a place of calm leadership? I take my kid when he's calm and regulated and receptive, and I say something like this. As of tomorrow, what's going to happen is that you're going to come home, you're going to have a snack. After a snack, you're going to do your homework. And only when you do your homework, you're going to get 30 minutes on the screen. Is that clear? If you don't do your homework, you're not going to get screen time. It's very simple, very clear. And now, of course, we need to make sure that we follow through, meaning that the next day, if they're not doing their homework, we're not going to let them be on the screen. Now, for children who are more strong-willed or more stubborn, we have to make sure that we keep this boundary by keeping the iPad in our rooms, by not letting them contact the screen, because if it's just laying around there in the home, they're going to want to go to it. We have to make sure that we keep our boundary in any way that we can. If it means that we're taking the remote control of the TV away until they finish their homework, if it means that we are taking away the keyboard to their computer, anything that we can do to make sure that we are following through on our commitment and to what we said is going to happen. So this will create the structure that they need in order to understand what is expected from them. The next thing is that we want to give our children a lot of responsibilities around the house. Some of those responsibilities can be taking care of the pet, watering the garden, or helping out with tasks around the house. We want to give them ownership over something that builds real confidence, competence, and self-respect. We have to understand that many of the children that have these ADHD traits don't get that sense of confidence, competence, and self-respect from school, because the school environment is not compatible with their traits and who they are. So if we give them that opportunity at home to be responsible for something, to do something that actually matters for the home, to do something that has an impact over the world, because if they don't do their responsibility, the pet is going to suffer, the plants are going to die, and the house is going to be chaotic, right? So there is real impact whether they do or not do their responsibility. It will give them a deep sense of pride once they completed something that is meaningful for the home. So we're going to give them a gift when we put more responsibility on our children, especially these children with ADHD traits, that they don't get that sense of confidence, competence, and self-respect at school. The next thing that we need to do is we have to foster a mindset that you always have a choice and that the label does not determine your identity. We have to believe ourselves and we have to teach our children in any way that we can that you may have strong impulses, but you are not controlled by them. The goal is to strengthen their sense of agency over their actions. It's so easy when we labeled our child with something like ADHD to start to expect less of them, to start to expect that they're going to behave badly, to start to expect that they're going to be reactive, to start to expect that they're not going to do well at school. But if we fall into that mindset, that is exactly where our children are going to get. The place where we set our expectations is the place where our children are going to get. If we set the expectations low, that's where they're going to get. If we set the expectations high, that's where they're going to get. We have to show them that it doesn't matter what the label on you is. You always have a choice. You always have a choice. You have the freedom to choose because you are a free agent in this world. You have a freedom to choose your thoughts, your words, and your action. And you have responsibility over those. Now, this may be harder for some kids than others, but still it doesn't mean that they can't. We have to, as much as we can, instill that mindset in our children that they always have a choice. Doesn't matter how hard life gets for them, they always can choose to do the right thing. The next thing is we want to teach our children regulation. Now, regulation must be taught from both sides, from the inside out, in a form of taking a deep breath, shaking their body, drinking water, going outside. We want to teach our children that whenever they feel dysregulated, they have a choice. Again, they have a choice to take control over themselves. They have a choice to go outside and breathe some fresh air. They have a choice to go and drink a cup of water. They have a choice to go and calm down in the room. They have control over their body and not their body have control over them. In the beginning, it's going to be hard because our children don't know about these options in the beginning. We have to be the ones that are initiating that for them and showing them when you're feeling angry, frustrated, and overwhelmed. If you take a deep breath, if you shake your body, if you drink some water, you feel better, right? So we have to help them with finding what helps calm them down and help them come back to regulation. And at the same time, we want to foster the outside-in regulation with our clear routines, clear expectations, having an environment that is less chaotic and minimal. And most importantly, we want to teach our children to regulate the self. What I mean by regulating the self is that we want to teach our children that when they are facing a challenge, whether it's at school, whether it's with their emotions, whether it's with one of the peers, whether it's with their sibling, when they're facing a challenge, we want to teach our children to take their self out of the center. What does that mean? Instead of thinking thoughts like, this is so hard for me. I can't do this. Why is this happening to me? We want to teach our children to change their mindset into what is asked for me in this moment. What do I need in order to overcome this challenge? What can I do in order to help this person? What can I do right now? What action can I take in order to make the situation easier for myself? So we're teaching our children to be action-oriented towards the outside and not self-centered. When they do that, they're going to become much more self-regulated. Next thing that we want to do, we want to limit the constant stimulation that worsens ADHD traits, whether it's high sugar foods, excessive screen time, and fast dopamine rewards. We want to reduce these inputs, the high dopamine, low effort activities that train the brain to constantly seek stimulation. When our children's dopamine system is dysregulated, what we're going to see is behavior that is chaotic, is behavior that is all over the place. Because when they're done with these activities, either they're going to seek the next high dopamine activity, or they're going to start to feel lethargic, lack of motivation, loss of energy, and numb. So we want to make sure we're limiting the high dopamine, low effort activities that they're doing throughout their day. And really good way to do that. And this brings me to our next strategy, is to simplify the day and prioritize nature. We need to simplify with fewer transitions, fewer activities, calmer routines to help the brain settle and focus. We want to make space for free play, outdoor time, nature, and physical activity. It's unbelievable what this will do to a child that has ADHD traits, or to any child. Any child, and even for you as an adult. When you prioritize being in nature, when you simplify your day, when you're not overscheduled, when you're not overstimulated, everything is gonna feel more calm and grounded. This in and of itself will solve 80% of the issues that children with ADHD traits are dealing with. This is so, so powerful. So I'm curious to know, which of these strategies have you tried already with your children? What has been working? What has been harder to implement? And what hasn't been working for you? When we shift from punishment to leadership, everything changes. Many of these children are not broken. They simply do not fit easily into systems that demand stillness, passivity, and constant compliance. Shifting our approach to calm leadership creates the environment they need to thrive. Now, if this calm leadership framework is something that you feel called to, is something that you feel connected to, and you want to really implement this into your life, check out the link below for my parenting program, Becoming Leaders, Raising Leaders. It's a 10-week program where I walk you through how to step into that role as a calm leader of your home, and how to raise children that are leaders themselves, that take responsibility over their life, that are strong, independent, and that will thrive in the world. If you enjoyed this episode, check out another episode where I break down how the narrative, the lens through which we view ADHD can change from a medical lens into a neurodivergent lens. You can find that episode right here.